Hi everyone, today is May 5th, 2018, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger.
And I'm Deck Tech.
And we're starting off a new month. It's Cinco de Mai-o, a new week of dueling. And it's interesting, the Visions of Icebox and some of these new cards we've gotten from the Mai event are shaping up the meta and making things very interesting to start off the season, which is a relief, since last season was a bit tough for everyone. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to be playing Duel Links. Deck Tech, where are you in the excitement?
I am at the very top of the excitement. For a little while, I was kind of not really feeling the game, where I was kind of just doing the minimum to get my reps in and get my rewards and stuff. But the last couple of days, I have been getting in games whenever I can and just really grinding stuff. I have been trying to figure out spell books. I spent most of my gems buying that box, the mini box, through twice. So I don't have a complete version of the deck yet. There's a couple cards that you want 3 copies of. So my version's a little bit janky, but at first it was giving me a lot of trouble. And then when I got a little bit more the hang of it and refined the list a little bit more, I'm doing a bit better. So I'm pretty excited about that. I also like that the deck has been, we're going to talk about it more later, but I like that the deck has like lots of different ways that you can build it. And so it's given me, it's like, tickling that itch or whatever that I have as a deck builder. I like to mess with things and kind of put my own spin on things, and the fact that this deck hasn't yet gotten like a core established meta version that everyone agrees on is also pretty exciting to me. And then I've been trying out Amazonuses, or trying to get to Amazonuses. I got the Queen, and I got the 3 princesses from Farming Mai. Again, we're going to talk about that later. But there's 2 rares in the deck from the last big box, Valiant Souls, and I hadn't purchased any of that box because I was low on gems. And so I'm buying through that box just to make sure that I'm constantly gem poor. But because I'd like to try that deck out, it seems like a fun and solid deck as well. And, that's kind of where I'm at. How about you?
Cool. Yeah. Last season I was king of games with Geared Gias, and from what I heard, that the deck was still doing pretty good. So I brought it back. I never put it away. And now I'm Legend 2, 20 wins. And I made some changes to the deck because I looked at some of the lists. I'm not a good deck builder, and I don't really care for those decisions. So I was looking at decks people were hitting King of Games with, and they had mirror walls. So I kind of cut out some cards I had, notably Memory Loss and Wall of D. So yeah, Legend 2, I beat my demotion game, so I still have some leeway to stay in Legend 2. And it's fun though. The new meta is different. Masked Heroes, I think Sylvans were top dog in the beginning of last month, and then Masked Heroes came in. Now it's definitely Masked Heroes are the deck to beat. You look out for it with Restart, and they have an extra deck. It's Masked Heroes. So Sylvans are still giving me fits though. Honestly, they are tough for me. And then you have Amazoness decks. They are beating me decently as well. I've beat some, but it's definitely very exciting with the new decks to compete in this meta. As for buying cards, I bought through the new pack 1.5 times. I'm about halfway done with the spell books because I have 2 of the guy. I don't even know what the guy's called, the Blue Boy. And
Blue Boy, yeah.
1 SR spell book, the one that tutors a card. But, yeah, I've been getting some of the other cards too. Pretty exciting to buy through new cards. I am holding a gem reserve though. I have like 1,000 minimum right now, so I'm not spending it all yet. But whenever there has been a lot of events coming on, so I can buy some every so often.
Yeah, and we talked about it before. The level cap, it doesn't give us a ton of gems, and they're pretty slow coming because it requires so much experience for each character. But I've now gotten 2 characters to 45.
Okay.
So I've gotten a little bit of gems there, and I'm working obviously on the 3rd one now. So, you get a bit of gems there. It's not really enough to buy through a whole box or anything, but something.
We are getting Cyrus, so that's another guy. He has the full 0 to 45.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That's the much better source of gems. Much easier to get those ones because obviously you can gain those levels much quicker.
Yep. All right. So we're going to talk about esports this week, and it's pretty exciting. We were mired in a thing of Masked Heroes being the tournament deck, and that continues on here in this report here. But it's interesting. Duel Links Pro 16 happened on Saturday, and that was before the Visions of Icebox, and then the other tournaments happened after. So we get to see what kind of changes happened. Duel Links Pro 16 happened on Saturday. First place, Select Maple, who was, I think February Kaiba Cup first place NA, I believe.
Something like that, yeah. Select Maple's really good. We've seen his or her name a lot of times now.
They brought Masked Heroes. 21 card version. Very standard version. It has this version has the Malicious and Dreamer. We're going to see there's 2 different routes to go what monsters you put in your deck. But there's also Cosmic Cyclone, Tribute to the Doomed. Very standard deck. They have Fire Formation Gyaku in the side, which is something I've seen on the ladder too with this deck.
Yeah.
And to counter that, when you're playing yugiohs, you activate your Pulse Mines well ahead of time, and then you're good.
Yeah, Pulse Mines are tricky because unlike most cards in the game, you don't have they affect cards that come down after you activate the trap as well. So you don't need to wait for them to get to a certain phase to do stuff.
Yep. Second place, Crucius. Crucius also brought Masked Heroes, but this is a different version in that they run balance. Almost all Masked Heroes decks run restart. This one has balance, so it forces this player to put in some trap cards. We have Paleozoic Canadia and Mirror Walls. And then the monster route. They run 3 Drill Darks instead of Malicious and Dreamer.
There's also no Polymorph, which I see most of them run 1. So that's interesting.
Yeah, they don't have those other Trinity and Dangerous in the fusion.
Yeah, and then the traps are the Paleozoic and 2 Mirror Wall. So it's a pretty different take on the deck.
Yeah, they're just using it for the defensive purpose of Econ, I think, because the other decks typically have 1 or 2 Econs.
Mm-hmm.
And then it could come back as an extra monster, of course. So.
Yeah.
Third place, Tecumseh, another Masked Heroes deck. This one does not run back row stuff, so there's no Cosmic Cyclones or Hate True Nates. There's 3 Econs, though. This is the Malicious version. No Dreamers, though.
Yep.
And who is KP? Grit Sylvans. This is as clean as it gets for Sylvans. They've got, all the monsters you need, and 2 Econs and 2 Providence, Ultimate Providence.
Yeah, there's nothing super exciting about this one. It's pretty much the deck that we've seen a lot of.
Yeah, you see
I guess
Sylvans
the
get
one
more
interesting...
creative.
Yeah. The one interesting thing is that the innovation of Grit that we got in the last Kaiba Cup, it's still here as opposed to maybe a restart or a beatdown or something like that.
Yep. Duel Links Meta Weekly 18. This happened on May the 2nd, which was curiously the first day of the Maya event. And it's funny how people have these 3 princesses and the queens on the first day of the Maya event.
Yeah, I'm not about to accuse any of these people of botting or anything like that.
Stayed up. So they stayed up all night.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume that they were just going ham on it. I wonder how many of those orbs they used.
And it's possible they're not American, because if you're in Europe, you wake up a bit earlier, and if you're in Asia, it's already during the day. So That's possible. There was an advantage there.
Yep. Classic. We're going back to Duel Links roots and blaming Asia for our problems.
Yeah. First place, Nell. Restart Amazonas. So, let's talk about this deck in whole. Even though we're going to talk about it more later, just to give you an idea of what it is. So, Restart, 3 Amazonas Princess, 1 Queen, 3 Amazonas Swordswoman, 2 Amazonas Sage, 2 Baby Tigers, 2 Forbidden Chalice, 2 Econ, 2 Powerful Rebirth, and 3 Amazonas Onslaught.
Yeah, like you said, we're going to talk about it more later, but obviously the Queen and the Princess are brand new, and then the Onslaught was and the Tiger, but the Onslaught is kind of the more important one, are fairly new from Valiant Souls. The deck revolves around the Princess and the Onslaught and the Queen a lot, and then the other cards kind of just complement and fill out the rest of the deck, giving you some of just kind of those classic powerful cards in the Econ, Powerful Rebirth, and Forbidden Chalice is a good meta choice now, and then some of the best Amazonesses to help clear up the back row with the Sage, and finish out games with the Swordswoman.
Yeah, Swordswoman has killed me in the games I faced Amazon. Because I guess a more experienced player would always swing with them first because I'm just low on life or something, but putting in Mirror Wall doesn't help against that card, especially not.
Yeah, definitely not.
Second place, Mr. Cellophane. This is also an Amazonas deck. The difference with this deck, it's almost exactly the same, but instead of Amazonas Sage, this person put in 2 Cosmic Cyclones, and they kind of have the same function because they fight the back row. And instead of 2 Powerful Rebirth, they put in 2 Amazonas Willpower. Let me just read this card. Continuous Trap, select 1 Amazonas monster in your graveyard and special summon it in attack mode. It cannot change its battle position and must attack if able. When this card is removed from the field, destroy that monster. When that monster is destroyed, destroy this card. So it's a bit different than Powerful Rebirth because they're not linked together. So you could lose Powerful Rebirth and the monster is still on the board. But this card has internal synergy with the Princess.
Right. And it also lets you get back the Queen, which Powerful Rebirth does not.
That's a good point.
Yep.
The sideboard has Amazonas Heirloom, which is a card we don't really see. It's on the outside looking in for Amazonas decks, and they also have Chaos Hunter, which is a card I really like. Like, I feel like this card should always be in a sideboard. Just does a lot.
Yeah. There's also that secondary effect, your opponent cannot banish cards, is pretty solid against the spellbooks that we're about to talk about, which is another new deck. So that might see a little bit more play in sideboards going forward. One last thing I want to say about Mr. Cellophane's list is that Cosmic Cyclone is obviously a solid card, and we see it a lot. But the Amazonas Onslaught wants you to attack in with your Amazonas monsters into enemy monsters, sometimes that are bigger than your monsters, because that's where you get some of the value from the Onslaught. And I guess since the card hasn't seen much play, might as well read it. It's a continuous trap that reads, once per turn during the battle phase, you can special summon 1 Amazonas monster from your hand, and if you do, it gains 500 attack until the end of this turn. After damage calculation, if your Amazonas monster battled an opponent's monster while this card is already face up in your spell and trap zone, you can banish that opponent's monster. If this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 Amazonas monster in your graveyard and special summon. So there's a lot going on here, but one of the main things is that, well, kind of all of the various parts are all very important, but the one that I'm talking about now is that it wants you to attack your smaller Amazonesses into bigger enemy monsters so that you could take advantage of that banish effect. And then when you have the Queen out, Amazonas monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle, then you can kind of do that multiple times to get more value. So his version in cutting the Sage, I guess, is primarily trying to do those attack ins with the Swordswoman, and that makes sense. But you're still, I feel like you can only use your life as a resource so much, and so like when you're running the Cosmic Cyclones, you're down 1,000, maybe 2,000 life, then you can't attack in with the Amazoness Princess as much. Obviously, the Swordswoman, you could attack in with her as much as you want, and I guess that's what his plan was. But I think I prefer the Sage to the Cosmic Cyclone for that reason, because you can only do it so much.
That was a good point, because yesterday I was in a pretty competitive game, and it was the ending score was 150-0. So 150 life points I lost.
Yeah, I mean I've always felt that the strongest decks were the ones that can use more aspects of the game as resources. So using your life points as a resource is a strength. Using your extra deck is a strength, because you're taking advantage of things that are available to you that other decks are not taking advantage of. But you also have to be just cognizant of how much you can actually afford to do that. So I don't know. Obviously, it worked pretty well for him. He got second place, which is very solid in such a competitive field. I'm just not sure if going forward how many Amazoness decks will go that route versus the Sage or something else.
Yeah. Third place, Grucius with Grit Spellbooks. And this is a 20-card version. Let me just read the deck out. So you got 3 Spellbook Magicians of Prophecy, 2 Strength of Prophecy. These are monsters, and the rest are spells. 3 Spellbook of Secrets, 2 Spellbook Library of the Crescent, 3 Spellbooks of Fate, 2 Spellbooks of Power, 2 Spellbooks of the Master, 2 Spellbooks of Eternity, and the one trap is Treacherous Trap Hole.
Yep. So this, of course, is the other deck that's kind of new and that we're going to be talking about a little bit more below. There's a couple versions of it that we're already seeing come out, and even within those versions, though, there's kind of a lot of flux as to which cards you run. So it's really interesting that we don't yet really have a kind of core meta deck established. But that said, this is a very clean-looking build. This looks like kind of he's trying to just make it what he thinks the standard will be, and it looks pretty solid.
And third place, Deadly Scarce, Masked Heroes, 21-card version. It just adds the Treacherous Trap Hole, which is good because they don't run any other traps. Yeah, and this is the Malicious / Dreamer version as well.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of decks that just don't naturally run traps. They just throw in the trap hole because you don't care about the downside, and the upside is really solid. You can get a 2-for-1 fairly easily that way. Yep,
that's one of the most impactful cards I'm seeing that is not Spellbooks or Amazoness.
Right, it's probably the single most universal used card, universally used or universally impactful card from the set, because a lot of the other impactful cards are specific to just one archetype.
Yep. And finally, let's talk about Duel Links Open 7. This happened yesterday, Friday. First place, Luller. This is Grass is Greener Spellbooks. So a 30-card version. They run those monsters that have the requirement of having multiple spellbooks in the grave. So that's Reaper of Prophecy and Fool of Prophecy. And then you get to cheat out the Prophecy Destroyer, which you can get out for free if you banish 3 spellbooks for 2,500. Treacherous Trap Hole. Grass is Greener, yeah.
Yeah, and the other card is Spellbook of Life that you can run in this version that you can't really run as well in the 20-card versions. One other weird thing is that most people I see who run the Grass is Greener 30 card deck are running it with Restart to make sure that you start with, or well, not make sure, but to maximize your chances of starting with a Grass is Greener. Luller is a really good player, another player who we've seen a lot of, and so I guess he or she, I don't know, put that a value over not getting OTK'd, and that might be why there's the 3 Fool of Prophecy. I like the card, but I don't usually see it as a 3 of in the Grass is Greener versions. What I tend to see more frequently is 1 or 2 more Prophecy Destroyers, and then just kind of going all in on the Grass Looks Greener route. So basically the whole plan is to put a bunch of cards into your graveyard and then special summon out a Prophecy Destroyer, whereas this plan has a little bit more room for just kind of a, what would you consider a more normal start with just a Fool of Prophecy.
So Justice of Prophecy is not good enough, right? It appears.
Sorry, which one?
That's that chick who's like holding 2 things. 1600. She special summons like a spellcaster, level 5, I think.
I guess not.
She's in the art. She's in the art of like a bunch of the spellbook cards, I think.
Let me just look.
I guess she's not good. She's not good enough, I guess. So.
Yeah, I guess not.
Okay. Well,
it is still early though. I mean, like people don't. Okay, yeah. This one. Yeah, I haven't seen this one very often. But it does. It seems pretty solid. So I don't know.
That's what I thought.
I guess
not yet.
This is another one of those rooms to kind of to experiment and see. You're very frequently able to just play 1 spellbook a turn, and I think you can do that. The thing that is less powerful, I guess, is that it adds the spellcaster to your hand, and so you are giving yourself negative tempo because you use 1 summon to play this, and then she vanishes herself, and then you get a card into your hand.
Yeah.
And the deck already has a bit of susceptibility to just getting OTK'd because sometimes you kind of just have nothing out. A lot of the spellbooks require you to have a what are they called? Spellcaster type monster out. So sometimes you'll just get hands where you literally can't do anything. And I think maybe that's why she's not seen play, is that she kind of opens you up to even more chances to getting OTK'd.
Right. That makes sense. Second place, Brian 95X. Restart. Masked Heroes, I guess. Drill Dark version, and it has Treacherous Trap Hole. 20 cards.
Yep, looks
Typhoon's
really
in the sideboard. That's something to look out for.
There we go.
I like Typhoon. Third place, Grit Aliens TC. Aliens are back. They this is a little bit different because they have Alien Kid instead of Gray. There's no more 3 Warriors. There's only 2 Telepaths, 1 Overlord. So there's the Alien Kids are coming, and they have Mysterious Triangle, which is back. I guess that's to counter the Master Hero Ankies that come out or anything that's special summoned, because they come back. If your Alien Kid's on the board, or you could pop a cell recombination and you can Mysterious Triangle them off the board. So it's good against the 1-turn kill meta, or they could kind of play as the 1-turn kill deck themselves. That's what this kind of looks like. And they have Treacherous Trap Hole. Yeah, new look alien deck.
Yeah, it's interesting to see a couple just kind of playing with some of the stuff that seemed to be core to the deck before. I also like that you can run the Treacherous Trap Hole. We talked about this when we first mentioned the card, but you can run it with other traps, both sometimes just kind of accepting the risk that you might not be able to play the trap hole, but it's less of a risk with cards like Powerful Rebirth that stay on the field. So continuous traps and the trap hole work fairly well together.
Yep. And finally, Mr. Draenoy, third place with Masked Heroes. I guess they all run Treacherous Trap Hole now that came out. Yeah. Nothing to add.
Yep. Looks, it's got the one Dreamer, two Malicious, Cool.
We've just seen this deck so much. It's just like, I feel like I have nothing to add each time.
It's just further solidifying that it's a very solid deck.
Yep. Alright. So in the game, Duelist Chronicles is ending in a few days. It went on for all of this week. And the thing that's different about this week is we got access to Divine Trials, which we can use our Divine Offerings with. And you spend 10 of them each time. I'm going to be honest here. I was kind of stupid. I went through 3 stages without finding them because I thought it showed up on the map, but you have to go in your support items to use these things. Did you know it was on the support items, or did you look for it too?
No, I knew it was there because when it first popped up, the announcement like, "Hey, it's live," it told us that that's where they were. But it is a little bit weird. It's like kind of an unintuitive place to put them.
So lesson again is read. It goes a long way reading.
Yeah,
always helps.
You need to. This game's all about reading. That's why they put a paragraph on every card, just to up your reading comprehension.
Anyways, you use 10 of them and you fight a level 50 Yugi who has a skill where he puts out a random Egyptian god card out on his second or third turn. And the good auto-dueling decks should work. And you get Card of Sanctity, which is a skill, but then you also get some other rewards, kind of like the Kaiba Cup rewards. But there are 2 different gems. I think it's 50 and 100. You get a UR, a stone, you get some gold. But make sure you get the gems, and also you get, once you start getting Millennium Coins, you don't get extra gems, so only continue those if you want to get more coins, which would help small gem totals from the lottery.
Yeah, that's how I've been getting a good amount of my gems, to just kind of scraping them out and trying to buy those packs, so I'm still doing it.
Yeah, it's like 5 gems for every 10 you pull on average, I'd say. So it's something, right? You just keep doing it for free. You level up your characters. It's better than auto-dueling, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than just auto-dueling the regular duelists. I don't know if it's quite as low as 5, because sometimes you can get like I've gotten like 20 gems in one shot, so I don't know how it all averages out, but maybe it's just that much. But it's good enough that I'm still doing it. You're just auto-dueling, so whatever. Might as well auto-duel these guys instead of those other guys.
And the Yugi skill, Card of Sanctity, it lets you draw 6 cards after you summon Slifer, and that makes Slifer 6,000 attack. It's probably not a PvP skill, but makes it a good farming skill, because you draw fast and you have a big monster out. Maybe.
Yeah, seems like it has some potential there for farming. Like you said, I don't expect it to be a PvP skill or anything, but we're probably going to see some sort of meme deck. I'm a little bit surprised we haven't already, that somehow someone ended up getting King of Games with Slifer or something silly, but that usually pops up at some point on Reddit.
Yeah,
but for most of us, for most of us, it's not a PvP skill.
I mean, you could just get like some piercing equip spell and anti-magic arrows and something.
Yeah,
it'll probably show up on Duel Replay at some point.
Yeah, just all those things.
The special pack is back. We don't know what it's called, but it's the special rainbow pack you get. That last time it came out, it caused a lot of controversy because we didn't get good cards, and then they gave us good cards. Well, not good cards, but SRs like Kuribo's and stuff like that. But they actually come in packs of 3 now, which is new instead of 1.
Yep. I don't remember what I got, but it wasn't anything good. So I mean, it was the same. I saw some memes on Reddit about how now they're disappointing us, 3 times faster, um, which was kind of true for me. But I also think it's unfair. The point of this is to help you fill out those cards that you didn't get full play sets of from various events and stuff. So, that's fine. It's nice to get free stuff.
Yeah. I got a Sword of Deep-Seated, which at some point I did not get 3 of because they made you choose which card you wanted, I believe, in a, what's that card? Pick a Gift campaign? And I didn't take it, so I did not have 3. So now I have 2 or 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those cards that you definitely don't need 3 of, so I'm sure you were correct in not picking the 3rd one, but it's nice to fill out your collection. So.
Yep.
There you go.
And I did get that Lion Alligator over the 100 gems.
Oh, yeah, so did I.
Yep.
It was a tough call because I think you're right. It's most likely not going to see play, and then at some point it's going to start showing up in events like this and stuff anyway, but I went for it.
Yeah. Elegant Mai is back. I think it's her 2nd time back, and she's got one of the best cards. We talked about it already. But it's probably the best farming card we have so far in 2018. It's probably not going to be Super Joey where every card was good, but Amazoness decks are pretty good right now, so make sure you get this card. It is Amazoness Princess, which we just talked about. Read all text. It's got like 3 good abilities. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to talk about it a little bit more later as well, so we don't have to go into that one. The other reward that she gives is Spy Sea Spy. It's a super rare, and you posted through the joint account that it's the most censored card that we've seen. Let
me try count how many. I'm looking at the picture right now, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 8 things censored in this picture. They're just drinking orange juice, and the guy's picking his nose. In a party. But anyways, 3-star, 1200, 1300, Fire Warrior. If this card is normal summoned, look at 1 random card in your opponent's extra deck. If it has 2000 or more attack, this card gains 1000 attack. If it has less than 2000 attack, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. So right now you can think about Masked Heroes. Their extra deck is all 2000 and above, so it's going to be a 2200. And the thing about extra decks is that they are going to be meta in the future when 3DS comes out. Synchros and XYZ cards all come from the extra deck. So you're going to see more cards like this that kind of play around with the extra deck.
Yeah.
And this card's Spicy Spy. I think that's what the weird name refers to.
Ah, that's funny. It's the Spicy Spy.
Yeah, in Spanish it's Espia Picante. So definitely spicy. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That kind of seals the deal. I like that one of the censorships, by the way, is that the guy's eyes are no longer hearts.
It's really funny.
It's not allowed to fall in love with the hot lady spy.
Yeah. And she's holding a Muyan curry. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did. That's interesting.
Some curry and orange juice. Party.
Yeah, there you go. That's all you need.
Let's talk about farming. What have you been doing to farm her?
So I started out... Man, now I don't even remember what it was. I started out, with a... what's it called? The Gatekeeper skill, where you start out with the 3
Elements
pieces.
Unite?
Yes, Elements Unite. And then it had it was fairies based, so you used the fairies so that you had various counter traps available to you so that you could try to counter all of her bounce effects. And then just, if you keep one of the Elements Unite, or one of the Gatekeeper pieces on the board, then you can do your normal finisher. But that one didn't work very well for me because if she gets out a Birdman Joe or whatever his name is, he is bigger, so she only has to destroy the biggest of the gate guardians, or bounce it, or whatever. And then after that, once she gets the yugioh out, then it's bigger than your guys if she has a
phalanx pipe.
Wow, can't remember the name of anything. The
phalanx
hunting
pipe.
ground. Oh yeah. Yeah, well, whatever. If she buffs it, it's bigger than your guys. So that one didn't work super well. So I switched it to the Necrofear Lab Builder deck, which I saw on Reddit, and I apologize to the Redditor who posted it because I don't remember. I didn't write down the name, and I don't remember. But the deck works by you use Doomdog, Octhros, and the Mimic cards to kind of just go through your deck as fast as possible. And then obviously you have the Lab Builder to stall, and you also use the Necrofears to stall. And she can't attack through Necrofear or the wall, and you can summon the Necrofears a couple times because you have the 3 Doomdogs, the 3 Mimics, the 3 other Mimics, and I'm running 2 Sphere Karibos. So she doesn't have enough bounce effects to get everything out of the way that she can't attack through. So you just stall through with that, and then eventually you end the game in the traditional, you use Sword and Shield to flip if you still have the wall out, and then you just do Vassal Union Attack Finish. And it's pretty free-to-play friendly, except for the Sphere Karibos, for people who have played for a while and have the Necrofears and stuff.
And just a tip for people who are new to farming, if you get those prismatic tickets, it's good to use them on Sword and Shield and Union Attack, things like that for farming.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a points boost for playing a prismatic, and then you do it every single time that you're doing a farm. It can get you over the edge. Sometimes you're at like 7,900 and you're just like, no! But what about you? What have you been using?
Yeah, for 30, I've just been using this Blue Eyes deck. That's not important, but for 40, I've used Winged Dragon of Ra with the new Merrick skill, Power of the Tributed, and yugiohs. So I'm just not putting these guys away. They're good for farming because they just keep flipping them around to clear monsters or spells. And the yugioh Arsenal tutors a monster from the deck, so that helps you draw, sort of. And you keep protecting them. And yeah, you get Ra out. This is dependent on how much life you have, because the skill, when Ra comes out, he subtracts all of your life points. So you get the 100 life points on the brink, or whatever you call it. And so if you're low, you're not going to get the 10,000. So I have Backup Rider to get Ra over 10,000. Typically, you're doing all the flipping, and then the board's clear, so you don't need Vassal Union Attack for this deck, or Secret Pass. So, and I have some prismatic cards, like the card that helps you draw a card, and Econ. I just put in a bunch of prismatic cards, and I got 10,600. I think that was high, because there was a campaign going on. So, yeah, works. I'm done with the farming pretty much. So,
nice. Yeah, I'm actually fully done. I got lucky. I got the princesses fairly early. I got the yugioh just like this morning. So I actually have everything done with her. At this point, I'm just auto-dueling with the next character that I'm trying to level up. So that's nice.
It's funny I don't have all of her cards, because I never played the level 40, so I don't have 3 Queen's Pawns and things like her older collection. I don't have all of it.
Yeah. I didn't actually check. I only looked at the URs and SRs. I'm assuming I have everything, though.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep. So make sure you do that. Some of the new decks, the Duel School. So Deck Tech took the lead here, and he looked at some of the new decks that came out from the new box and the new event. And these 2 decks kind of brought some life back into the game, and they're pretty cool. So you're talking about Amazoness and Spellbooks.
Yes. So we'll do the Amazonesses first, because I think they're a little bit more straightforward. We mentioned a couple of the deck lists up in the tournament section. You'll notice that the deck is pretty free-to-play friendly, in that a lot of the cards, there's some URs and SRs, but a lot of them are just from facing Mai or leveling her up. And so that makes it really easy to pick up the deck, except if you're like me and you haven't purchased Valiant Souls. Then you have to go back and buy it through a couple times, or not buy it through, but buy a couple packs so that you can get those rares. One of those rares is the Amazoness Onslaught, the one we talked about before, which is kind of like the key to the deck. The deck is pretty much built around the Princess, the Queen, and the Onslaught, like we mentioned before. The other cards are really solid, but that's where it is. Once you pair the Onslaught with the Queen, it allows you to swing all your Amazoness monsters in so that you can clean up enemy boards, and then you just overwhelm them with the card advantage, the value, and just decently sized monsters attacking in for lethal. Enemy control is also really solid in the deck, so you can use that for kind of one-turn kill type, aggressive plays. You usually end up having more guys on the field because you have various cards like the Onslaught, like the Baby Tiger, that come back and bring things onto the board and allow you to bring more things onto the board. The Princess as well, of course. And so because of that, you can use econs to take advantage of the fact that you have 3 guys out and they only have 1, and then that's just a good play to go for lethal. Princess, of course, allows you to tutor out the Onslaught and the Queen. So you really want to start with the Princess, and that's why you see most of these decks running Restart. We have a guide by Redditor New Blood 310, who got an early King of Games with it, and then wrote up a little guide that I thought was pretty good, so we're linking it here in the show notes. But he said that he restarted for Princess like 90% of the time. It's pretty much the most important thing for you to start out with. We have seen some people opting for Holy Guard instead of Restart. And the idea there, of course, is that you can attack in more aggressively with your Amazoness monsters so that you don't have to worry too much about taking a bunch of damage when you do so. And that's kind of pretty much all I had on that one. Obviously, we went over the deck list, so you can see a little bit more how the deck fills out over there. Did you have anything to add on it?
Would you say Dual Standby is crazy to have as a skill?
Why do you want it? To get the Princess, or?
Yeah, just to have like an extra card.
I just don't think it's as good as Restart, because really, first of all, you're playing kind of a card advantage game with the deck, so giving your opponent one more card is maybe more of a downside than other decks. Like mill decks want your opponent to draw cards, so they don't mind running it, and then burn decks are pretty much going to ignore your opponent's board is more their game plan, so they don't care if their opponent has more cards. But this deck plays more like board-centric and minion-based or monster-based, and so it seems like it wouldn't be as good in this deck.
Yeah, I was thinking about Ice Barriers, as always, and they always run Dual Standby, and it's kind of like you want the extra card to draw, but yeah, your point about it has to, like, Dual Standby probably has to be overwhelmingly on your side of the deck, than giving your opponent that card for card advantage, I guess.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense in the Ice Barriers because they have those cards that require you to like reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters in your hand or whatever. I never played that deck, so I don't remember exactly, but because of that, you need to have a full hand, whereas the Amazonesses can kind of like build their own full hand, especially once you get the Princess going. Then she's like an engine all on her own if you can get her to get started. There was one tip for playing against it that that New Blood gave, and that's you don't want Princess to enter the battle to enter the battlefield doing that way. So if you can, you want to, like for instance with the spell books with the Fate, you want to get rid of the Princess before she attacks. because once she does, then the ability can trigger, and it summons another monster, and then you have another problem on your hands. So,
Yep.
One other thing is that she can, her ability to, let's see, so it reads, when this card declares an attack, you can send one other card from your hand or the field to the graveyard to special summon one Amazoness monster from your deck in defense position, except for the princess. So that's why you don't want her to attack. You want to either econ her or windstorm or remove her with the Spellbook of Fate before she gets to declare her attack. And it's declare an attack, not like complete an attack. So you want to turn your toggle on and make sure that they don't get to do that. And it also means that the extra, like if you get an extra, what do you call it, onslaught, then it's not extra because you could just send things from the field to the graveyard to summon extra monsters. So it works really well in that no card is a dead card, essentially, once you get her going.
Yeah, having faced Amazoness a bunch on the ladder, I kind of wish I had more Ties of the Brethren, because I only run the one version, the one copy version, and the only way to beat them is to go faster than them. That's how I feel.
Yeah, it's one of those, since it's a board-centric deck, it seems like they might, like I said, I haven't gotten all the traps yet, so I haven't played it, and I haven't yet really played against it too much, so I'm more looking at deck lists and seeing how the deck works. And it seems like, since it's so board-centric, if you can take the board before they do, then it'll be much harder for them to come back from that. They need to kind of grab the board early, and then once they do, they don't really let go of it, because all of their cards like protect each other and build on each other and get more copies of each other. But if they don't get it early on, then you can kind of dictate the flow of the game and make sure that they don't get their engine going. So
right,
I think that might be.
The fact that they have to attack is important, because this is, I would say the way this works is kind of like Sea Stealth, right? Like the Princess and the Whale is kind of like Sea Stealth and Onslaught. And those are a little bit different because you can banish it during your turn without attacking, but the fact that they have to initiate the combat makes the board presence more important than the Whale, I think.
Yeah. And it also allows you to do the same thing that you could do against Sea Stealth, where if you pressured them too much early on, then they can't afford to attack, especially if they're running the traditional restart version instead of the Holy Guard. Then, you only have so many life points, so you can't afford, even if your monsters aren't dying from the attacks because you have the Queen out, you still can't just be, swinging away and taking extra damage to your face. So it seems like that might be part of the route. The last thing is that New Blood said that Sylvan's was the deck that he lost against the most on his climb, and he said it's because of the potential immunity to traps combined with the combo-ness of a turn 1 co-mushroom. So I don't know about you, but I've noticed that early on in the ladder, like there's still a lot of Sylvans on the ladder. So I'm a little bit lower down because I didn't get King of Games last season. And so what does that make me? So I'm at Platinum 1, and I faced like 80% Sylvan so far. Jeez. So maybe if you're where I am, you might want to hold off on the Amazonesses a little bit, or tech your deck a little bit differently to maybe have a bit of a better matchup against them.
Man, I would have just quit the game if 80% Sylvans. That just terrifies me.
Well, I've only played 5 games, so I was okay with it. It was 4 Sylvans, something like that.
I'm seeing them less than I did before, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I think the higher up people might be the ones who are more interested in trying with like those other decks. Definitely play more Masked Heroes. The people a little lower down, Sylvans are are fairly cheap. You only really have to buy one box through a couple times. And it was a mini box, right?
Yep.
So I think maybe the people where I am are slightly less devoted to time or money into the game, and so maybe that's why there's a little bit more Sylvans. But
if the Sylvans went away for spell books, that would be great. Let's transition to spell books.
yeah, there you go.
So before we talk about them, I want to apologize, or I want to renege on a comment that, well, like the theme of last week, where I said spell books aren't going to be an archetype. We were called out on YouTube by Shadow of I-69, our listener / viewer, who played spellbooks in the TCG a lot, and I don't know. I feel like I just didn't see it, but the people who played it in the TCG knew it was really good, and even though it doesn't have the best cards from the TCG, it's enough for Duel Links to get you King of Games. It's enough to win you tournaments. It's legitimate.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a classic weakness of ours, that we haven't played as many of the archetypes from the TCG, and so sometimes we're just going to miss things when other people who've had more experience with stuff already don't really have to, on the fly, find all of the synergies and stuff. They have a little bit more background, so thanks for watching and listening, and and bear with us when we sometimes get stuff wrong, because the spellbooks are actually, going into talking about them, they're actually pretty complex in terms of Duel Links decks, and they have a lot of internal synergy that all works together for powerful effects. So the individual cards aren't necessarily as strong. It's kind of like a whole package deal. The core cards include the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, who, aka Blue Boy, is kind of what people call him. The Spellbook of Secrets, which is the super rare one that allows you to tutor other spellbook cards, and as a reminder, that includes the monsters, the Magician of Prophecy. Spellbook of Fate, which is a very flexible quick play removal card. It can bounce set spells and traps. It can, if you banish one spellbook, if you banish two spellbooks, it can flip a monster into face-up attack position or face-down defense position. Or if you banish did I say monster? If you banish two spellbooks, to do that second effect, if you banish three spellbooks, then you can just banish any card on the field. I think probably on your opponent's side of the field, but you can just banish any card. So very powerful. Probably the reason why you play spellbooks in Duel Links, at least. And Spellbook of Power gives a monster plus 1,000 attack, and then when that monster destroys, or if that monster destroys an enemy monster that turn, then it replaces itself and lets you tutor out another spellbook. I believe that might be limited to spell, but it allows you to tutor out another spellbook card from your deck. And then the pair of them, Spellbook of Eternity and Spellbook of the Master, allow you to get more usages out of your spellbook. So Spellbook of Eternity allows you to retrieve a spellbook that has been banished, usually through Spellbook of Fate, sometimes through Prophecy Destroyer and maybe a couple other cards. And the Spellbook of the Master allows you have to have a spellbook in your hand, but it allows you to copy a spellbook that's in your graveyard's effect, so you get to use it again. And so those kind of get around a couple of the spellbooks. You can only play one per turn, so Spellbook of the Master lets you get around that. And then, of course, Spellbook of the Eternity, or of Eternity, lets you get around deck building restrictions. You can only have so many of these in your deck, or you can tutor them out and then just get more uses out of them. Some of the spellbook cards, as we talked about last week, want you to have multiple different spellbooks, so you can just fill up your graveyard with the various different ones, and then sometimes that means, though, that you don't have more copies of the ones that you want, and so the Eternity lets you get that back as well. All in all, those let us really recycle really heavily, and what the deck is really solid at is allowing you to kind of get advantage and protect your guys through playing a Spellbook of Fate pretty much every turn, or maybe getting some burst damage with multiple Spellbook of Power buffs. That's one thing that I really like doing, is getting Spellbook of Power plus a Spellbook of the Master to get a plus 2,000 and just swing in for lethal, usually after I've kind of tested or cleared the back row with a Spellbook of Fate or something. We're seeing two main builds of the deck so far, but even within those builds, there's still a lot of experimentation going on. So I'm excited. I'm still playing around with it. This is really what's been capturing the bulk of my attention, is tweaking various versions and working with stuff. Some of them working a lot better than others. The main split is between the 30-card Grasslook Screener builds and then the kind of more traditional 20, maybe 21-card builds. Grasslook Screener, of course, adds the 3 Grasslook Screeners, but also tends to add cards. It tends to add Prophecy of Destroyers, kind of the main version the main reason why you'd run that version. And then it also runs other cards that have that similarly either fill up the graveyard or take advantage of a full graveyard. So Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress is one. Monster Gate is in some builds used as kind of a 4th Grasslook Screener. Reaper of Prophecy and Fool of Prophecy are both powerful cards that require you to have multiple different spellbooks in your graveyard, so they get advantage from you having dumped 10 cards into your graveyard. Those versions I have here that they pretty much have to run Restart, but we already saw a Grit version of it, so I guess that's not quite the case. But I found that it relies pretty heavily on the Grasslook Screener, so you really want that Restart to get it as early as possible. They also seem to be a little bit more boom-bust in that they're kind of more one-turn kill based or very bursty, because you have the Prophecy Destroyer. So what you'll do is you'll Grasslook Screener, you'll play a blue boy, you'll summon out a Destroyer, you'll maybe remove something with the Fate if you need to or whatever, and then you'll buff once or twice with a power, get lethal. Obviously that's kind of ideal situation where they only have one thing set or whatever, but sometimes that happens, especially with Sylvans is kind of one of the powerful matchups where sometimes they'll just first turn set a co-mushroom and then you can sometimes just win from there. Duel Links Meta put out a video of that version in which Decade runs the Grasslook Screener and explains it a little bit. One weird tip that I got from the video relates to the timing of the triggers in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is one of the aspects where I'm definitely not a pro. And where he said is you can flip, if you suspect that they have a co-mushroom, then what you can do is you can use the Spellbook of Fate to flip it into attack position and deal a whole bunch of extra damage because it only has like 100 attack or whatever it is. But usually when it's flipped, the effect triggers, and that can be very powerful for them, of course, because that's how Sylvans work. So to avoid that, what you do is you chain the Spellbook of Fate to a different card, one of your other spellbooks, so that it's a chain 2 or higher, and then you use it to flip the mushroom, and then the mushroom will it'll miss its timing for some reason, because its effect can't be a quick play effect or something. And so because of the various ways that those effects, well, I guess just the co-mushroom effect is worded, that is one way that you can get some extra damage in, get a lethal, and cheat them out of their deck working the way that it's supposed to work. So definitely check out that video if you're interested in the Grass is Greener build, which right now is the version I prefer because I like that it has the beefy monsters and the burst potential. But the non-Grasslook Screener builds are a little bit more all over the place. I've seen some Grit, I've seen some Restart. We saw on the day one a really interesting one that ran Dual Standby and Endymion, which was really cool. I wanted to try that one out, but I was missing a couple of the cards and didn't work as well. Those versions don't rely as much on self-milling, And so they kind of tend to just have the minimum amount of stuff in their graveyard so that they can use a Spellbook of Fate, when they need to and for whatever purpose they need to. They also need to be, of course, a little bit more careful about when they're using it, since they have fewer resources in the graveyard. Instead of seeing those cards that fill up the graveyard or use the graveyard, you see cards like Strength of Prophecy, which adds a little bit of recursion back into the deck and is a decent monster just kind of on its own. They tend to be a little bit more consistent and kind of mid-range / tempo-based instead of having the super high burst potential, but they can still do things like the power plus the master so that you get a 2,000 attack point boost all in one turn, and sometimes when you only have 4,000 life points, that's a pretty solid boost. So all the versions of the deck are just pretty high skill cap. You're going to want to actually read through your cards and practice the deck a little bit to see, how all of the pieces work together. A lot of the cards can search out other cards in the deck, so you'll want to get this one so that you can play this the spellbook. What's it called? The Spellbook of Secrets. So you'll grab the Spellbook of Secrets so that the next turn you can just play the Spellbook of Secrets to get whatever you would have grabbed the first time so that you have an extra card in your graveyard. Stuff like that. The people who do well with them, think that they're meta-defining possibly the best decks in the game, whereas other people, including myself, can kind of struggle to make them work. So it's definitely a deck that takes a little bit of practice to figure out, especially if you're like me, haven't played it in the physical TCG. I guess the last tip I have is that remember that a lot of your spellbooks require you to have either they have some sort of stipulation on them. So you can only use one per turn. If you special summon this thing, then you can't special summon other things, or you have to reveal one of your spellbooks from your hand to your opponent, or you have to have a spellcaster in play to use this card. So you need to kind of keep track of, okay, how many spellbooks do I have in my hand? Can I play them in this order, or will that leave me with the card that I want to play? I have no spellbook card to reveal. Or, you have to keep track of the cards you can only play once when you are trying to go for lethal or something like that. You can't play this one twice even though you have two in your hand and all of that stuff. So it's a little bit more keeping track of all of that than some of the other decks that we've played so far. So that's part of the challenge, and that's fun. Did you have anything you wanted to add or ask about the spellbooks?
No, I'm too dumb to play them. but I haven't seen them in the ladder too much, so I think I faced them on the first day when I was still in Plat 5, I think. And this was definitely helpful because I didn't read all the cards, I don't have all the cards, and I've never played the deck, so it's definitely good to know all this stuff.
Cool. Well, I guess that's all we have for the Duel School this week. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully we didn't mess it up too much again. And try out some of these fun new decks.
Yeah, sometimes playing a complex deck, there's a bit of ownership, I guess, that you are playing one of the more difficult decks, and something to be proud of if you can master it.
Yeah.
Alright, upcoming news. Unofficial leaks. These are unofficial. I'm saying it right now. There is a skill called Silent Duelist, where you lose 1,800 life points and you can special summon a Silent Magician from your deck. So, get that level 8 out. It's pretty good. 3,500, no spells. Spellbooks are done.
There you go.
Esperoba has some data mine skills which involve Jinzo. So it's possible he's going to come playable, maybe. You probably will get one copy of Jinzo whenever that is. But some of these skills put one or two Jinzos into the deck. They weren't in the deck before, so they just put them in one or two. It's kind of like the Parasect skill. There's some skills about reading your opponent's cards, so it's kind of like Mind Scan, but their hand. There's some psychic things going on. It'll be exciting if we get Esperoba. He's not a main character at all. It's kind of like Bones being a legendary duelist.
Yeah, maybe not main character, but kind of an impactful one. I don't know. Bones felt right to me. Esperoba, I don't know that series as well.
Yeah, Bones showed up twice at least. Esperoba showed up once.
Okay, I don't know. You could be iconic even if you're limited. One thing that's interesting is that back when I played the physical TCG, Jinzo was in pretty much every deck. It was just super good. And I wonder, because we're already seeing some decks in Duel Links that don't run any traps or just run the one, now that we have the new trap hole. And I wonder if Jinzo would actually be good enough to be played at this point in the game.
He probably would have been good when everyone ran like Mirror Wall and Windstorms.
Yeah, I think there are definitely points in this game when it would have been just OP, but I think maybe his time might have passed, which is interesting. Yeah. Like a couple months ago, I think it would have been maybe the best time where we ran some traps, but not all traps, and we can get rid of those stupid like stall burn deck things with Monster Morph. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think if they give us one with Esperoba, then I don't think that would be a big problem, and it might not even see play.
Yeah, I agree. Tristan has a character profile data mined, and it says he was present at every one of Yugi and Joey's critical duels. That's not true. He wasn't at some of them. Maybe in the first season he was, but then like later on they split up, so it doesn't happen.
Yeah, lies.
And we are going to get to duel him, but I don't know if we're going to get him as a character. They may have just wrote a profile for him. I don't know, maybe. We'll see. This game still has some time left. And Vagrants. These are the things you buy. So you put 6 Vagrants out. It's kind of like a Vagabond. But they reward 5 to 30 times the experience of a standard duelist.
Wow.
So you have gotten that queen right away, pretty much, if you had one of these guys.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's nice, because even though I continually get to the level cap before they raise it again, at some point it's just going to be such a slog to gain levels. Like, even now it's pretty slow going from 40 to 45. So, once we get to the 55 to 60 range, those ones are going to just take forever. So it's nice that they're going to add new ways to kind of add them. I hope you don't only have to buy them. I hope you can get some for free. But anyway, it's kind of cool.
They say they come in packs of 6. So would a fair price be like $199 for 6?
I don't know. I guess so. That sounds about right.
It's kind of like the boosted dual orbs. They're only buyable.
Yeah. Well, no, but you get them as rewards and stuff every once in a while.
The boosted ones.
Oh, the boosted ones. Yeah, I don't know. So those are the types of items that I never buy. If the only thing the item does is speed up the process with which you can do stuff, then then I'll just sit here and auto duel instead. I don't know. Then again, I have purchased packs, which is essentially just a really roundabout way of doing the same thing. So I don't know.
It's different though. You're opening a pack, but
yeah,
it's like if you have a hankering to get a 40 right away, and you're just not there. If you really want to play this deck right now, you want to bring it to a tournament or something. That's what it's for, I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's reasons why people would buy them. Some people think that it's you're trying to have fun in this game. You're not supposed to just like grind. Sounds like you're working, and they don't want to feel like they're working, and to them it's worth the money. I'm not naysaying people who want to do that. I'm just saying that's not for me.
Yeah. And this is official news. Cyrus is coming on May 9th, so 4 more days before we get a new guy. He's bringing his Viacroids, so we got some new cards that probably are not going to shape the meta at all. Arcana is coming to the gate mid-May. Jesse's coming back, for those who don't have him. Tristan's coming back. we get to duel him for once. The Duel Links World Championship begins late May. Regular duel-a-thon in early June. Zane is back, not for keeps, early June. And Tag Duel Tournament GX as well. And also the improvements to the Vagabond, which we don't know the details for.
Cool.
So we're going to give a shout out to Konami today for finally retweeting our tweet. They know we exist.
That's right.
The war's over.
The war's over. We won. Mission accomplished, boys.
Yeah, get that banner. Photoshop George Bush out and put someone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that tweet about me getting 10,600 duel assessment in Elegant Mai and finishing my Amazon's Princesses, which I can't play because I don't have a queen.
Well, you'll get the queen soon.
Well, considering she's level 40 and not even played at all, I leveled up the wrong characters. I have some time left.
You can do it.
They're probably going to drop out of the meta by the time I get her at 45.
Sounds like something that would happen.
Yeah. Oh well, that's it. Anything else to add today?
Nah, I think we've been here a good while. Let's go ahead and head to the wrap up.
Thanks for listening to us today. Listen and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Overcast, and YouTube. Check out the podcast and more at our website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. If you want to help support our efforts, patreon.com/duel_assessment. Send us an email with any questions at theduelassessment@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter, duel_assessment, me at Green Ranger, HS Deck Tech at HS Deck Tech.
Yep, sounds good, guys. We'll catch you next week.
See you.